Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Horror movies get a bad rap. They're cheap thrills, mindless gore, not cinema, blah, blah, blah.
But we here at Sitting in the Dark know better. We know that horror is more than just jump scares and chainsaws. It's a reflection of our deepest fears, our anxieties, Okay, and there's a lot of jump scares and chainsaws.
Join us, Pete Wright, Tommy Metz III, Kyle Olson, and Keenan Diaz, as we cut into the dark heart of horror cinema.
Every episode, we explore a different facet of the genre, from survival horror to home invasions, from zombies to birds. We tickle the tropes, analyze the angles, and sharpen our own axes along the way.
We'll introduce you to the classics that shaped the genre.
And the modern masterpieces that are pushing the boundaries of terror.
Sitting in the Dark is your guide to navigating the terrifying, thrilling, and sometimes hilariously bad world of horror movies.
We'll help you understand why we love to be scared.
And maybe even convert you into a horror fan yourself.
So turn off the lights, close the basement door,
and join us.
Sitting in the dark.
In a world where podcasts are a dime a dozen, one show dares to stand out from the rest.
The Film Board, a podcast unafraid to tell it like it is.
We're here for one reason and one reason only: downloads.
That's right. We review new release movies because that's what gets people's attention.
But just because we're in it for the clicks doesn't mean we don't take our job seriously.
We're part of the Next Reel family of film podcasts, and we're proud of it.
Our reviews are just as insightful and thought-provoking as any of our other film podcasts.
It's just that this podcast is all about that sweet, sweet SEO.
The nectar squoze from the tree of Bing.
We're only human, but we're also creators.
And creators eat clicks to survive.
So if you want honest, unfiltered opinions on the very latest movies right on opening weekend,
delivered with the self-awareness of a team looking for downloads,
then tune in to The Film Board,
where every download counts, but yours counts the most.
All the Feelings presents
Adulting.
this episode,
Conflict.
Welcome back to yet another episode of All the Feelings, Adulting. It is me, Tommy Handsome, and our friend Peter Magoo, and we welcome you back. This is the fifth episode, Pete. This is going
it right?
through.
Ugh, too many.
Right?
Too many, too fast.
Too fast, too many, too fast. That's the promise. That's the all the Feelings promise. Too many, too fast, kind of dumb. Great.
How are you today, Tom? How is your, I realized, I'm a little embarrassed.
Oh no.
We'll have to save it for another time. Normally what the Feeling Friends get in our member pre-show is an update on a certain arms dealer in the family.
That's right.
And I didn't do that today. So that'll have to be for next time. But just know, if you are not yet a Feeling Friend member, you would normally get an update from an arms dealer, and I'm pretty excited about you continuing to share that. Yeah,
I think only Feeling Friends
only
know.
Feeling Friends know.
So freebies, enjoy it, but there's another backstory. Like, there's things under things. There's other worlds than these, some would say.
Truly.
Very exciting. Okay,
Truly.
So anyways, but for everyone, we're so happy you're here. Thank you for joining us. And today is a doozy. You're going to catch these hands. Today we're talking about being an adult and managing conflict. And how does one do that? And has it changed? And whatever. And as usual, neither of us know what the other one's talking about, so we're going to roll the dice. But thank you so much for joining us. And should we go ahead and jump in?
Consider it jumped.
Subset 1.
Shaving off conflict.
Peter, hello.
Hi, again.
Hello. We are talking about conflict. So, Pete, let's talk about razors. First and foremost, do you use a razor?
I do.
Which one?
It's from Dollar Shave Club.
Interesting, because I use Harry's razors, which is their big competitor, and
Yep.
I use Harry's because it's a subscription company the podcast told me to join. Okay, is that why you do Dollar Shave Club?
What's funny is I used to use Harry's, and I switched to Dollar Shave Club, and I don't know why, but probably because a podcast told me to.
pretty much everything I buy is because of podcasts.
It's because
I
of
think I
podcasts
might listen to too many podcasts. Yeah. I live in Squarespace. I don't know if you know that, but they actually rent
100%.
physical properties. Okay, well then, now that we got that covered, let's switch to a different type of razor. Have you, and I know the answer that you have you ever heard of Occam's razor?
I have indeed.
What does it mean to you? If you had to define it, gun to your head. Oh, speaking of managing conflict, there's a gun to your head, Pete.
Wait.
There's a podcast gun to your face.
Wait a minute. It's one of those aphorisms. It's like Occam's, isn't it like the simplest solution is usually the right one? Or am I thinking of a different
100%. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
It was from 14th century friar William of Occam. And he says, if you have two competing ideas to explain the same thing, the simpler one is better. So you can either construct a very large, crazy, explanation for something, or maybe it's because you left the door open and that's why your dog got out. Something like that.
Right. How does this relate to conflict?
Oh my gosh, Pete. Are you ready? Have you ever heard of Hanlon's razor? I say this knowing that I learned this week. I'd never heard of Hanlon's razor before. Hanlon.
I'm going to tell you right now, I have heard of it. I could not tell you what it is.
Okay. Well, I thought it would be fun to share because I just learned this when I was in San Francisco, and it really has to do with potentially managing conflict. Hanlon's razor, this comes from Robert J. Hanlon. I have no more information other than his name, is never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity or incompetence. You are nodding your head furiously. Your glasses flew off. Your spittle is coating your face. You knew it.
Yes, that was one we used to talk about in relationship to one of my favorites, the Peter Principle, which is the exercise of failing up.
Is that named after you?
Yeah, right.
Nice.
It's really unfortunate, but we used Hanlon's. I think the shorthand of it was never ascribe to malice that which can be described by idiocy.
Right.
And yes, now it is all coming, like it's the hot kiss at the end of a wet fist, Tom. It's all coming back to me.
Thank you, Fireside Theater. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that applying Hanlon's razor, which we're going to put up to the side for a second, but I think could have a lot to do with helping manage conflict as an adult. And it is something that since learning about it, I am trying, granted, I just learned about it this week, but I'm going to try to implement more in my life. As I had said, explained by stupidity or incompetence, you said idiocy. For the listeners, those words can probably be replaced with other words like ignorance, incompetence. I would say being forgetful, being overly tired, being shy, being naive. It just means not working on all cylinders and definitely not aimed at you. These other people are going through their own thing. Now, before we apply Hanlon's razor, Pete, I wanted to bring it to you. Do you have times in your life that maybe you assume malice or ill intent from someone else, and then upon reflection or time going by, maybe something else was going on? I know I do. So if I'm putting you on the spot too much, I can go first.
Well, Tom, we try.
Yep.
We don't try hard enough on this show, but we have in the past made an effort not to be terribly political.
Right.
But I will just say Hanlon's razor describes my experience of our federal government right now. That there are times when I know there's actual malice, and there are times when I can't see anything but ignorance.
Malice is just because they're throwing darts at a wall.
Yeah.
That they're not really, they're just sort of trying to float culture wars, political rivers, and whatever sticks. Sure.
Right.
Do you have one personally? Because I have one that is just a personal thing for me that I think people can relate to. But...
I think you should go, because if I go, I'm going to call people out by name.
Oh, no. As the camera pans and you have a huge list of names
right
behind
next
you
to
with
me.
X's. Yeah. Okay, great. For me, it's when I make a call or a text and it goes unanswered for way too long.
Oh, sure. I don't,
because I'm me, I don't get angry at that person. I start to unravel and think that they're mad at me. That's my version of malice, is I fill in the void by thinking that they might be annoyed by me. I'm sending too many texts. I'm sending too many calls, and they're like, ugh, this guy, I just have to keep putting him off. Again, there's been no conversation. There's been nothing.
Right.
It's same with a text written to me with a dead affect. No, just no exclamation points, no real, what's it called? The dots. That's a very easy word. Punctuation.
Ellipses?
That's it.
Oh,
No,
punctuation.
punctuation. I was
Oh,
going way back.
God.
As I said, it was a
Dots?
very, very easy word. The dots and the lines, punctuation. Great. If it's really a dead affect, I read it as such, and I'm like, why is this person being so mean to me?
Why they hate me?
And that's after I have been on record on this very podcast, actually on What's That Smell, saying that I write text like a moron. I'm too sophisticated for emojis, but I write the word me, M-E-E-E-E-E, in a desperate attempt to sound human.
You're a flamboyant texter, for sure.
I am really putting it all out there.
Yeah.
Every time I text, Paris is burning. And so, or like another version is I'll give someone a really big hello, and they sort of mumble back first thing like this. And so I fill that void with malice or ill intent, meaning they're annoyed with me, I'm annoying. And instead, maybe their phone died. Maybe the text got misplaced. Maybe they just forgot in the morning when I say hello, and they are like, hey, maybe they're just overtired. Maybe they're worried about something else. They're thinking about something else. And no one writes fancy in texts anymore. No one writes complete sentences in text.
For sure.
Myself included.
And I should say, I just want to say for the record, because I know I've gone some time not responding, but also you do, because you are
1,000%.
a liberal user of Do Not Disturb. And so it'll sometimes go days where I don't hear from you. And I think to myself,
is that true?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Because I say to myself, I'm going to send Tom a funny something. This is an article that I think is really funny. And I imagine you hate getting articles. Like, you just don't text articles. Anything with any humor is like not your jam, because they'll just go completely ignored for days. And I realize, he's just gone full D&D, and he forgot to turn it off.
D&D.
And
D&D. I thought you were like,
Do
he's
Not
got
Disturb.
full Dungeons and Dragons. Do Not Disturb. That makes more. D&D. He's just really role-playing. Well, that sucks, and I'm sorry about that, but that's important. The most important thing is you're learning now in real time. I didn't know I do that, and it's certainly not malice. It is me probably not knowing how my phone works, because you said I use Do Not Disturb a lot. I didn't know that. Potentially, I have to look at the settings of my phone. I would think I use it only when I'm asleep. So, So,
it's outstanding.
How
We're
does this
doing
relate
great.
back to Hanlon's Razor? So sometimes our basic narrative that most of us play every day is that we play the lead role in our story, of course, and everything revolves around us. That is very natural. The problem is that with that way of thinking, with that main character syndrome, is that when we start assuming that we play a prominent role in everyone else's story as well, it's sort of a reverse spotlight effect. We are actually putting the spotlight on ourselves when it's not there, instead of how we usually do it. Or is that how we always do it? Yeah. So in conflict management, as an adult, I would like to suggest that we all try and use Hanlon's Razor more often, at the very least, so it busts us out of this self-centered framework. That I think that when someone doesn't reply to my texts, I'm so busy thinking they hate me, they're talking about me, they're thinking about me negatively. They're not thinking about me at all. And what a
They're
more
not thinking about you
peaceful
at
place.
all. Yeah, that's the thing.
And that's peaceful. That's fine, because if everyone was thinking about me all the time, that sounds terrifying.
It's
awful.
awful.
Not worth it. Yeah.
Who would want to live in that kind of world?
Nobody would. I read, actually, I was at in San Francisco. One of the reasons this came up, they didn't talk about Hanlon's principle, but I was at the Exploratorium, which is this kids sort of science museum, but it's also for adults. It's really fascinating. My parents and I went to visit it for an afternoon, and they talked about, there's this whole wing about emotions and dealing with people and communication. And they described that most of the time when we run into each other and it seems like there's conflict, they said that it's actually more similar to someone cutting you off while driving. When someone cuts you off while driving, you don't go and assume that that person wanted to harm you specifically. They weren't like, "Whoa, Pete, now's my revenge." They barely even know about your existence or anybody else on the road. They're acting for their own interest, or out of ignorance, or just desperately trying to reach wherever they're trying to go, and they accidentally cut it a little bit too close. But road rage comes from, you have hurt me personally, I need to hurt you personally, but that's just not the case. And I thought that was a really valuable way to think about day-to-day conflict, day-to-day annoyances.
Yeah.
Take the you out of it and just be like, you know, I always try to be as empathetic as possible, but put yourself in their shoes and try to think of what are some other possibilities, that it's not personal. It's not about us at all. So I think that might be helpful. I don't know. I know we're not supposed to just find something on the internet and talk about it. That's why I'm making it so personal. But I just thought that I just never heard about this, but it really lit off sort of a lightning bolt in my face.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because it ties quite directly into what I wanted to talk about today. And I think that the imaginary argument is something we have to get in our heads, right? We have to understand what that is and when we're doing it. Because you use that great example, right? The imaginary conflict is exactly that. Someone cuts you off in your car and you're in a courtroom drama in your head, right? You're presenting evidence, you're doing it. I was cut off not too long ago. And I actually got out my phone. The person was driving really recklessly, let me just say. I mean, it was bad. And I went into full, like, I'm deputized dad mode. And I took out my phone and took a picture of their license plate and tried to figure out how to report somebody after the fact for reckless driving. And I stopped myself because, oh God, do I want to be that guy? And then, it was not long after I think I saw the Lonely Island video of Sandberg and Charlie XCX about how they love calling on people for being on their yacht lawns.
I'm reporting you to the cops. That's a
I'm reporting you to the
song. That's an amazing,
absolutely brilliant. It is so brilliant, and I was like, this is not who I want to be. I realized this was in my head, and so the follow-on question for me is, do you remember the last fight you had entirely in your head? Do you remember that?
It's daily. Well, I don't have fights. I have people not liking me. I have people in their minds fighting with themselves about, am I more annoying than ever, or am I even more annoying, or something like that? That's how I fill the void, because that's a part of my anxiety, is I don't go as far as, I just keep blaming myself. I'll just go ahead and cut it to the quick. I'm too easy to blame myself in the situation and assume I did something wrong to cause this other person to feel poorly towards me. And they're not even feeling, see, I just made another jump. They're not feeling poorly towards me. I added that in. All they did was not respond to a text. That's it.
Right.
Yeah. But I don't say, what a jerk. They don't care about me that much. I'm saying I must have done something wrong. But that's still, to your point, it is still completely, it's what I call filling the void. That there is a blank amount of time, and my mind rushes to fill it with as much apprehension and anxiety as possible. And it needs to go real quick, because that text is probably right around the corner. And my mind only has so much time to try to destroy me from within.
To feel bad about it.
Yeah. Oh my God, we got to ruin this kid's day.
Yeah.
He's almost at Universal Studios. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's fascinating. And I have a longer story, which I'll get into in a bit about, I'll just tell you, my imaginary nemesis.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Pete.
That's what you have to look forward to.
That's in your segment as an imaginary nemesis?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to talk about my imaginary nemesis.
Does he, she, or they have a name?
Oh, yeah. No. The imaginary part is that they're my nemesis. They're a real person. It's a whole thing. There are like villagers and subplots. We'll get to it. Well,
now I kind of want to get to it. So here, let me end my segment by saying that if you want to practice, this was what came up in the Exploratorium in San Francisco. Again, they weren't saying Hanlon's razor, but they were talking about managing conflict. And I was
they should have been, is what you're saying.
They should have been. Yeah. There was an exhibit, as I said, about misconceptions of those around you, how to try and shift from fast mode thinking is what they talked about it, of making a snap decision of that person did that because they're a jerk and they hate me, and now I hate them, to slow mode when judging others. And they suggested this. I haven't tried it yet, but because I don't know if you know, I have a supermarket near me. It's called Ralph's.
Ralph's?
I spend some time there. Yeah. I may have mentioned it every episode. And I'm going to be doing this next time I'm in Ralph's. Next time you're in an endless line, this is what they suggest. Notice when you're assuming the worst about a person's character based on their actions. That could be someone checking people out, someone, it doesn't have to be a line, someone blocking the aisle, someone in line in front of you, behind you. And when you do see that you're assuming the worst about a person's character, try and imagine another reason the person might be behaving that way. That's all. Make it a game. Gamify the idea of I'm trapped in this line. So instead of just sending out death lasers from my eyes silently, try to think of why might that person be acting this way? Why did that person try to edge their card in? Did they accidentally think that was the end of the line and they didn't see me? Yeah. Does that person not understand how cell phones work? And so they think they have to hold it like a pizza and scream into it? Again, that person gets no passes from me, but everybody else, I thought I might try that more because, everyone's perspective is different than yours. And try to jump in there, and maybe it's sort of fun to try to figure that out and see what are the other reasons. And then if you want to be real creative, come up with some crazy ones of why that person cut you off, because there's a ticking time bomb, and they have a weird bomb where if they don't cut someone off every 30 seconds, the bomb will go off. It's like a very complicated speed. Yeah. Everyone, let us know how that goes. And every time you do use Hanlon's razor, we will sign you up for Harry's. This episode is sponsored by Harry's. A clean blade for half the price of a normal one. Please sponsor us. Anyone? And now, celebrity conflict management.
Bette Midler is very stupid. She's not a bad person, but stupid in terms of gray matter. I mean, I like her, but I like my dog too.
Actor James Caan.
In the long, strange catalog of human conflict, wedged somewhere between the Peloponnesian War and your last family group text, there is one battle that stands out for being both entirely real and completely ridiculous. The War of the Bucket. Northern Italy, 1325, two rival city-states, Bologna and Modena, on opposite sides of a centuries-old political schism. Bologna backed the Pope, the Guelphs. Modena backed the Emperor, the Ghibellines. And they hated each other the way only deeply Catholic Italians in the 14th century could hate each other. Now, tensions were already boiling. This wasn't a happy neighbor situation to begin with, but then, according to legend, Modenese soldiers raided Bologna and, on their way out, took a bucket from a public well. A bucket. A wooden, ordinary bucket. Possibly wet. Why the bucket? No one knows. Some say it was a symbol of civic pride. Some say it was just lying around. Personally, I like to believe it was the medieval equivalent of a middle finger. Bologna demanded its return. Modena, because they are Team Petty, said no. And that's when Bologna, a city filled with scholars, lawyers, and presumably some people who knew better, said, all right, let's go to war. Which they did, full scale, 30,000 troops mobilized between the two sides. The Battle of Zappolino was fierce, messy, and, let's be clear, technically about a stolen household bucket. Modena, despite having fewer troops, crushed Bologna, sent them running, and as a final act of insult, marched home and celebrated like they'd just saved the world from darkness. Here's where it gets even better. For years, tourists were told that the infamous bucket was on display in the Torre della Ghirlandaria. But that's a decoy. It's a replica. The real bucket, the actual object of war, is tucked inside the Palazzo Comunale in Modena. In Modena, in a small chamber known as the Camerino dei Confermati. a historic room once used for confirming death sentences, and there it hangs, high on a wall above an iron grill, 700 years later. They kept the bucket for 700 years. Of course, historians will tell you it wasn't really about the bucket. It was about long simmering territorial disputes and political rivalry and tax routes and influence over the papacy, blah, blah, blah. But tell that to the bucket, still dangling like a passive-aggressive ornament 700 years later, because this is the truth about conflict. It's almost never about what it's about. We fight about the symbol, the text message, the tone, the dishes, the thing that isn't the thing but feels like the thing. Sometimes we're Bologna, offended, outraged, ready to mobilize over principle. And sometimes we're Modena, digging in, winning on a technicality, and putting the trophy on a shelf. But all of us, we have had our bucket wars. Gear up for your own bucket war by becoming a feeling friend today. For $35 for the season, $25 if you're renewing, you'll get bonus episodes, live tapings. Live tapings? Who does that? Access to the live streams, a sticker, and our deepest thanks. Not hung high on a wall, but quietly held in our squishy, grateful hearts. Just visit allthefeelings.fun to join us today. Thank you so much for your support. And whatever happens, please guard your bucket. And now, back to the show. And now, celebrity conflict management.
Every time I read Pride and Prejudice, I want to dig Jane Austen up and hit her over the skull with her own shin bone.
American humorist Mark Twain.
Subset 2.
Our invisible nemesis.
Okay, so Tom, where we left off, we were talking about, I think the, what was it? The imaginary argument?
Invisible people that you're fighting with. Yeah.
Right. The invisible nemesis.
That's right.
So there was a while in my own adult life where I thought and used this word about a real human being, that he was my nemesis. Wow. He and I ran a website that was very similar. We were both actively making photographs on contract. We were going after the same clients.
I see.
We had the list of similarities. We were always showing up at the same meetings together. We at the same association meetings and new product announcements and things for our gear. And then I found out, Tom, we have the same birthday. As if there wasn't already enough insult added to injury. We have the same birthday. Now, what's fascinating about this is I don't know how. There's nothing fascinating about this at all. It's really sad. It makes me off like a sad little man. But the truth of the matter is, this person is really, really nice and really great. But because my first interaction with them was around a client engagement that they got that I didn't, it's like I lost an audition to them. That started a cascading list of emotional failures in my head that made him my nemesis. I will tell you that it has a happy ending because I later, hired him to work with me on a number of big projects that we did together.
And then fired him right away. Oh no!
And then I hired him back, and I fired him again.
Yeah.
And we worked together for quite some time. He's just a delightful individual. And I was crazy because, of course, he's a complicated human being. And we felt the same way about each other. Of course we did, because we're dumb humans. So these imaginary nemeses, I think, are important to recognize and to really ask ourselves what's happening. Is the guy at the grocery store who has no idea, that he's your mortal enemy? Like this one checkout guy you always get.
Right.
It's like you spend way too much time thinking about that one person.
They're
than
so
they
important in your life,
ever
and they don't
deserve.
know that you
Yeah.
exist. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so that was the first little bit that was going to intro my imaginary fight club of
Okay.
adult conflict. So level 2 is the passive aggression Olympics.
Okay.
Passive aggression is wielded, incisively by a lot of people, right? It's like, this is what you learn when you become an adult, because I don't know kids who are passive aggressive. It's almost a rite of passage. Like, do you know kids
Interesting.
who are passive? Maybe there are now because of social media.
I feel in teenagers can be.
Right. But not little kids.
No. They would get it wrong.
I don't call teenagers kids. I do.
That makes sense.
I call my 20-year-old
point.
kids.
Okay.
Anyway, it's when you don't yell. It's when you say things like, it's fine, with a tone that could, corrode metal, right?
It's fine.
It's
okay.
It's as if it's that feeling you get when you go to use the bathroom and there's like one square of toilet paper left on the roll.
Ooh.
It's fine, right? You're building a case against that person. So
Sure.
I ask you, Tom, what is your go-to passive aggressive move?
To another person. Oh man.
Yeah.
I wonder if I have it in my head, like if it's conscious or not.
I wonder that too. Like the point when you send a message by not doing something or doing something, right? That in your heart of hearts you should or should not do, but you do it anyway as an act of protest.
I don't think this is passive aggressive, but something just popped in my head. Something that I would say to people that didn't like me or I didn't like in grade school sometimes. I think this is maybe too aggressive to be passive, but I would say, you can hate me, just hate me quietly.
Oh, that's just
is that passive aggressive or is that just aggressive?
That's a boss move. Are you kidding?
It kind of was. Yeah. If they were being mean to me, I would say, you can hate me, just hate me quietly. That confident person went away. But that's who I used to be. I don't know. I'm not sure. He got buried. But yeah, so that's not passive aggressive. Let's see. It's a good question. I know I do it plenty. I can't think of one. I'm sure I do it plenty. I know sometimes someone will say something and it will be kind of a word salad and go all over the place as I can see them trying to figure out their footing in real time. I will purposefully let an extra 2 beats of silence go and then go, okay. And then I'll start talking. That's passive aggressive.
I know exactly where that comes from. Oh, yeah. Of course. Because of what.
And if I just said, okay, then I would let them off the hook. But letting those 2 seconds, I'm like, everything gets quiet. And they go, okay. So, and so without commenting on it, I'm like, we both had time wasted.
That's your hate me quietly move as an adult.
I think it's the same thing. Yeah.
I think it's the same thing because I know exactly where that comes from. That comes from the Tom who, if he was on the receiving end of that move, would be apoplectic.
Of the okay? Yeah.
Yeah. If you were on the receiving end of okay, that's the Tom who got crazy.
Right. Friend of the show, Scott Lamb, callback. Yes.
Of course you would use that as you would weaponize that so artfully. Yeah. Of course you would.
Makes sense. Yeah. How about you?
I have been known, I don't do this often, but I have been known to pull an email power move.
Oh no.
When people email me multiple times and they're like asking for the same thing over and over and over again, I think what a lot of people probably do is just respond to the most recent email.
Nice. Do you stack them?
I go all the way back to the first one and I respond to that one. And sometimes if I'm really being belligerent, I'll then go to the second one and say, already responded.
Oof. That's stronger than what I have though in the past. If someone has written me 3 different times, I have copy pasted them So there's like a whole list of their emails and
In
I
one
answer,
email.
and I don't even know if they'll notice. Most people don't go back to find out what I
Yeah.
responded to. But yeah, okay.
Right. That's just one of those things. It's like, it's almost a gaslighting move. Like, it's almost, did I
Sure.
write multiple times?
Right.
And sometimes you just want to say, relax. And it goes with like because I look at this as internal conflict management, right? When I was at my very worst some years back, it was because I let my level of stress be so directly determined by other people's level of stress. And if
sure.
someone wrote me 5 times and was super amped about something, I would just get really amped about it too.
You would match their level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would feel really, really bad about all of this. And so part of the sort of mantra of their stress is not my stress was a way of me sort of disarming my internal fuses. And sometimes when I find myself getting amped, I just have to send a message and I can't stop myself. And so I act in a passive aggressive way, and it's the worst of me, and I know it. And I really, it's so front of mind that I would even say it on a podcast with you.
Yeah.
I feel bad about it, and I'm trying to do it less. But you know what? Maybe don't write me 5 times about the same thing. This leads into and I think this might be harder. We'll see how hard it is for you to relate to what I call the domestic micro battle.
Okay.
This is a domestic. It may, you've had roommates. Notably, you don't have them now, which makes me think you've had this experience. These are things like the thermostat wars, the dishwasher negotiation, right? The who's going to put the trash out summit. Do you have a relationship with these sorts of things?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do when I share hotel rooms with people. The one that really strikes me the hardest is the thermostat. Is I have gone as far as to when they're in the restroom, beep, 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 because I really suffer from heat. Like heat messes me up. And so I will, or I'll wait till they fall asleep and then lower it a little bit. Beep, beep, just a little bit. Just enough to kick on that air.
What?
Yeah.
To what? 68? Do you go down to 68?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd go further if I could.
That's my go-to. Yeah. Because too much, some of those hotel things, if you go too much further than 68, it goes to just low.
Right.
Yeah, I don't care for that. I want to know the number.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think 68.
I think these things are insidious if you let them go. And it leads to passive aggressive behavior, which is what you and I are exemplifying here. Waiting till they're asleep and turning the thermostat down is a passive aggressive power move, and it's not very nice. It doesn't make us look good.
Okay.
It's sort of a, like, I don't even know what these are, but I as I was reading up on this, I was on Reddit and I was reading up about the Cold War protocol that some people have. There's like a whole thread on the domestic Cold War protocol, topics that you avoid to prevent mutually assured destruction between partners. For a lot of people, it's politics.
Sure. You just
for
don't
intersectional
talk about it?
political. Yeah, they don't talk about it.
Got it.
For intersectional political partnerships, if you talk about politics, it can be very, very destructive. So
I'm
they
like
just
that
don't.
with parts of my family, like my extended family, which we just don't. When we get together for Thanksgiving, it's just not worth it. Because I know we don't see the same.
Totally. And it gets serious so fast. Like it simmers and builds up from the passive shade about dishes and the thermostat to actual hard conversations about how this friendship has gotten hard, or there's a thing I've been afraid to talk to you about for years and years. And that level of conflict is so adult, and it reads to me, my experience is that over the years those kind of conflicts have gotten harder, not easier.
Okay.
I would have expected, the older and wiser I got, that it would be easier for me and for people around me to have those kinds of conversations. But what really has happened is it's gotten easier to avoid them.
Sure. Because you're in your own community. Yeah. Yeah, well, by definition, because like unlike college, unlike when you just have friends before you're all married up and stuff, your community is smaller, it's bigger, but also more tight. And so you're
Yeah.
around these people all the time. When we're adults and living in different states, it makes sense that you can just let things roll off
Yeah.
and ignore that they're compounding and getting worse and worse.
Right. Because the adult conflict is not loud and fast. It's slow and it's sneaky, and it's with people you don't even know you're fighting with. And I just seems to me that it's like conflict now. It's like I'm realizing how badly we were trained for it. Because it's a muscle, it's a skill. I have another client, Bill Eddy and Megan Hunter, and they host a podcast called "It's All Your Fault." It's a podcast about high conflict people, and Bill Eddy is, I've mentioned him on the show before. He's a specialist, psychotherapist, I think. He's a specialist in high conflict people, and we're talking about like the top 1% of 1% of people who are so conflict anchored that they don't know how to communicate any other way. Their most useful tools to them are the worst tools for everybody else.
Ugh, that sounds terrifying.
And it reminds me, for the rest of us who have to interact with people who are more conflict anchored than I am, that it is a muscle, that healthy conflict is a muscle, and you have to work on it. You have to flex it, right? You have to practice asking the questions out loud when they're easy so that you're not afraid when they're hard.
Interesting. Sure. Yeah, so don't shy away from all conflict all the time, otherwise known as the Tommy Metz the Third model. Sure.
Well, and it's a part of something that we learn when we're teenagers, right? It's the process of individuation. It's the process of introducing conflict subconsciously to help you make change in your life, to help grow away from your parents so you're not afraid to move out. And we do the same thing with our relationships. We do the same thing when we're about to break up with somebody. We just become really unlikable so that we hope they break up with us first.
Gross. The ultimate.
Tell me you've never done that.
I have not done that.
I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it.
I'm too busy trying to be liked. I can't be unlikable on purpose. That's impossible. I would rip myself in half. No, I have not done that. Yeah.
So I think that is a thing that I feel like we learn as adults. And so I ask you as sort of a closing question, what is one thing that you feel like you wish you were taught about conflict when you were younger? Like real conflict, right? Not debate club conflict.
Right.
Not like how to win an argument, how to influence people, that kind of pablum. I'm talking about like how to fight without losing a relationship. What do you wish you were taught?
So actual fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean like fisticuffs unless you
I know,
like,
but I just
punch people a lot.
Tough for me because I'm not saying it's a good answer, but I just don't fight very much. Part of that is because I'm not in a committed relationship, I'm sure, but I guess it would be to think about perspective and think about stakes. So what might the other person, what is this? You've already sort of said it. What is this fight really about? One of the things, the showrunner, Alan Ball, he did an interview about when he was in the midst of 6 Feet Under. And he talked about a writing technique that he and his writing team used, which is when a big fight would break out, he always said that fight started 4 scenes earlier. You didn't know it, but that's where that fight started, and then it erupts later. So to be able to not get caught up in the heat, but be able to somehow very quickly, because there's not a lot of time for downtime and arguments, but be able to say, what is this really about? And then try to see it from the other person's perspective in that kind of feeling. Hanlon's razor, to go back to my segment, involves that too. Try to think, if it's not just about this. Another thing that my parents told me when we were in San Francisco, that when they were getting together in the beginning, they had promises to each other to not be hysterical, but also when fighting, not be historical. Meaning, if we're fighting about this thing, don't have the fight actually be about the last 10 things that I did that annoyed you that you didn't bring up. That's letting
Keep it
history
present.
be
Yeah.
about the dishes. Keep it present. Don't be historical.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing. It's really try to take a break from the screaming in the middle right then and be like, what are we really talking about here? Because we're not talking about what we're talking about. That's the basic of a lot. You actually don't care about this thing. You feel that I have been ignoring you or belittling you or condescending, and you picked this moment consciously or subconsciously to bring it up. But you're pointing at dishes. I think you're pointing at a larger thing that I can work on. It's a blind spot that I have. That's mine. It turned out I said, I don't know, I don't argue, and then I had a really long answer.
No, you have a really good one. I think that's a really good one. It's funny. We in my wife and I started a process, I think a long time ago. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but we started this process of saying, like, just out of the blue, hey, is there ever anything that you really, really want me to change about myself?
You've talked about this before. I like that.
Okay.
You have brought this up, not in a way that I'm saying you shouldn't bring it up now, but a long time ago you brought this up. I don't remember why, but I always thought it was a really cool thing.
I don't remember the context of it either. It does feel familiar that I've talked about it, but just in recap, we ask, like, what can I change about myself today? And the first time we did it, it was like, why? Is there something you want me to change about myself? And the answer was yes. And that thing is, I don't want you to hang your whatever wet towel right there or something.
Sure.
Like, it was just something kind of innocuous. Yeah. But we would always make sure after that, it turns out that worked really well for us, that it was a trade, right? We would just trade something that we find kind of a splinter. But one of the reasons I like that is that we don't really fight. My wife and I, we just don't. And people are often gobsmacked about that because, we're always taught you've got to fight well, you got to fight well. But what if the things that bother you don't ever simmer because you're talking about them all the time? Like, you're moving through them fluidly like water rather than letting them get stagnant.
Like you said, talk about the conflict when it's easy so you can talk about the conflict when it's hard. If you just constant do little pressure releases, then the pressure doesn't build up. I love it.
It doesn't build up. And that's one of the things that I think has been for this relationship. The thing that I wish someone had told me was, one, but two, that can work in all relationships.
Right.
Not just an intimate partner relationship. It can work with every single relationship if you frame it right and if you practice it and you build it like a muscle. And I think that can relieve a lot of tension as long as we're talking about it. So that's my pitch. I like them both.
Yeah. I like them both. I like all of that. Did we just solve conflict? Oh, sorry.
Then no, because then there's always fisticuffs.
In the back. Always in the back. Okay, got it. The lamest Fight Club ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one last time, celebrity conflict management.
In the future, when you're walking down Times Square and you see Kanye West drinking a flat Sprite out of a McDonald's cup out of a garbage can, you can bring it back to this moment.
American rapper, singer, and songwriter Azalea Banks. Thank you all so much for joining us this episode. This week's tune is Make Me Mad by Offrin. And coming up next week, Pete, what are we talking about?
Tom, we're talking about managing time. Oh, yeah, it's my favorite. This is my favorite drug, productivity.
Yeah, I think my segment is going to be just nodding because you love this stuff and you have every app and every idea and everything for it. So mine is just going to be like, Pete, fix me. And then, managing time,
I do
tasks.
bumps of powdered index cards on street corners.
Just rails of whiteout. Excellent. I'm very much looking forward to it. So time management will be next week, and we got through this without fisticuffs, so good on us.
Good on us, Tom.
This was a great episode. Until next week, I'm Tommy Metz III.
And I'm Pete Wright. Thanks for downloading. And we'll be back next week with all the feelings, adulting.
Nothing